Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the 11th day of September 2019. Well, this is a very special day for all of us here in this country. I saw on Twitter a group of first responders in New Zealand were doing a haka, I believe that's how you say it, dance to honor what happened. My daughter, I have a daughter-in-law that's her father's from there. She grew up in New Zealand, and she was actually born in England, but her parents settled there in New Zealand, and she was raised there. So we have a little bit of that in our family, that type of feeling. So it's kind of it was sort of heartwarming to see that as one of the first things I saw when I started scrolling through Twitter this morning to see what was happening, you know. So anyhow, I did if you've been here before, you know that I'm interested in esoteric astrology. I find it's just incredibly, I don't know, it's just different than traditional astrology. It's really more about the soul's purpose. In fact, I think I even remember reading one esoteric astrologer refused to even do transit charts because all you needed to know was contained there within the natal as to how to, guide your life and what have you. But one of the things esoteric astrology, well, all astrology looks at the cusp positions, the signs on the cusps of the houses and all of that. But esoteric astrology tends to give it maybe a little more weight. I don't know. It seems like it from what I've read. Having to do with what's coming and what our purpose is. And so I thought that I would do a blog post, which I did. And of course, I was about ready to write up the 11th house cusp, and I lost it all. It all went away. I don't know how. Obviously, I did something, but I can't tell you what it was. So I had to I went back to see what when I refreshed it, all that came back was through the second house. And so I was just mortified. Anyway, this took me until 11:15 last night to finish. I started sometime in the mid-afternoon, maybe, I don't know, 3:30 or 4. But I was researching as I was writing and everything, so that's why it was taking me a little bit of time. But what it's called is called On the Cusp, and it's just the house cusp positions, the signs on the house cusps for today. And what I did was I instead of putting the location here where I live, I put it in Manhattan, and I put the time. Because I really just didn't know how else to do this. I put the time as I went and looked it up on Wikipedia. And it's the time of when the first plane, Flight 11, American Airlines Flight 11, hit the North Tower. So I used that time, and I did a cusp forecast, basically. And I just looked at where we're going. And I have to tell you, along with the direction of ascension, the whole idea of taking a more humanitarian approach, we've lost our way, basically. And it just seems like maybe if we could, we were united for a little while when that happened, when September 11th happened. But it didn't last, did it? And now we're just at each other's throats, and that's not okay. It's not. We've lost the shared purpose. We don't have to agree all the time. I mean, that's how new innovations happen. So somebody has a better idea. It's like, no, let's do it this way, There's got to be room for that. That friction within, that inner northease that provides the impetus to do something, to start something, to begin something, to move, to create. So check that out on the blog if you like. It turned out pretty well. I may do more of those. I like looking at that. It's kind of like it just gives you like a place to begin. really. We can look at all this astrological information. It can tell you all this stuff about yourself and everything. And even if you're looking at the daily forecasts and stuff, and it's all helpful information, right? But where do you go with it? Well, in esoteric astrology, you go to the house cusps. So anyway, that's what I did. Anyhow, check it out over there at imsteppingaside.com and see what you think, and see if any of it resonates. I tried to write it from the perspective of, okay, this is what happened and this is where we need to go now based on, the information there and, what it's suggesting. So it's a little bit different than how I do things. So a lot of it was kind of from my own historical perspective of what I remember about that time and what's transpired since. And so, I'm doing it through the eyes of someone who's about to turn 62. So, maybe my awareness of it is different than someone older than me and definitely different than someone younger than me. So give it a look and see what you think. Anyhow, again, if this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you so much for coming by. I always try to talk a little bit before I start while I'm shuffling so you just don't hear the sound of cards shuffling. I would imagine that would be weird. So I try to share a little bit about what I've done on the blog or what, the current transits are. We've got the moon's in Aquarius today. So, we're thinking about harmony and flow and positive interactions with people. But on the collective sense, given that it is 9/11, there's more about the collective consciousness, I think, entering today, where there's got to be something that we get an answer to, that we can find our way back to some kind of unified presence here, so that what we're doing is actually for the good of the country instead of the good of the guy in the Oval Office that's currently there. Because whatever he's telling you, it isn't true. It's just not. So it's sad that we don't have President Obama here today with us, or President Bush, to lead us through this day in compassion and love and empathy like we did before. No matter what you thought of President Bush, I wasn't a fan, of course, but, still, he was, he could touch people. He could touch people's hearts. And that day we were together. That day that he was on the pile, that he was down there at ground zero, we were together. We were one country, one people. We were all New York City at that point. It didn't matter where you lived. Remember that? Where is that now? Because I would postulate that we are in as big a crisis now as we were then. So, still have about 6 planetary bodies in the 11th house. One of the things I saw on there, though, when I was looking it up, I haven't written up the correspondences and astro information for today, but I spent the morning looking for my keys. Finally found them. But anyway, one thing I noticed, one thing that was written down was we're to learn from others. When we see people as the other instead of the other side of self, we forget to learn from them. We forget to embrace the cultural differences and allow them to enrich in our lives. We forget to do that. We see them as the enemy and as someone to fear, and that's where we're at right now. I mean, even Mars in the 11th house talks about friendships and groups being important right now. But to watch how we, Mars in that house is asking us, well, in Virgo, you might want to be a little careful how you express authority if you're the leader of the group. Make sure that all voices are respected and heard instead of just yours. So, anyhow. So it's just a day of quiet reflection and harmony and remembering those we've lost and loving those that are still with us. So anyhow, let's get started. Take our first card. And if you haven't been here before, I take the 13th card each time. Well, I had this one. Did I have this one yesterday or Monday? The Eight of Swords. Now, this just came into my head, so I'm going to interpret it this way. Because of the day, eight is about the greater awareness of the collective consciousness. The problem is for empaths, we're aware of it all the time. And a lot of it sort of floats in and out of our consciousness and awareness. If this is regarding how difficult the emotions are going to be today, if you need to stay away from the television, you need to stay offline, do it. Go ahead and imprison yourself a little bit here in your own space, because you're going to probably need it. This could be too much for us today, for those of us that are empathic. Otherwise, it could be that we're just binding ourselves up, you know, too many thoughts, and we've had to go within to sort of release ourselves from all of that. Or it could be that we're being surrounded by a bunch of lack of integrity, maybe too many voices that don't make any sense, so you want to shut it all out. But traditionally, you might look at this card as getting in the way of yourself, you know, too many thoughts getting in the way of everything, so you have to just sort of shut down and, you know, bind yourself up a little bit, close yourself off to everything else that's going on around you, and just align and meditate and find your center. But if you're an empath like I am, and it may be that you can't really experience the emotion of today because it's just going to be too much, you know, you're not just going to experience the emotions of those around you, you're going to experience the emotions of people all over the country. You'll feel it if you're online. If you see emotion expressed online, you're going to feel that, you're going to experience it. Everything, you know, is vibrational. Everything is electrical. So to think that we can't affect people through email, through online activity, we can. So be mindful today, especially, of not getting in the way of anyone, of not extending too much attention onto someone who maybe feels like they don't want it. They're going to feel it as vampiric, even though you may not mean it that way. It's going to be perceived that way. And if you're dealing with someone who's empathic, it's going to be magnified by about 1 million. So just be aware that today's a very sensitive day for people. So don't be afraid to step out away from it all and align within and take your refuge. You'll need it. Well, let's look at our second card. Well, we're looking at the Queen of Cups. We're looking at the water element and our emotions. She sits at the water's edge, whereas the King is right in the water. Her cape looks scaly, almost fish-like. You see the cherubs above. You see the beautiful chalice she holds. It's not that she's looking at the past, but she's reflecting. She's being reflective, basically. I interpret when they look to the past and look down as being actually a moment of reflection on what is going on or what has been going on in her life. So for today, if we're going to look at this in terms of 9/11, you know, the 11th day is a day of illumination. The 11 is a master number. And it's the master number for illumination and enlightenment. So, you know, we were shaken that day, weren't we? We were shaken out of whatever illusion of safety that we had. We discovered that we didn't have any. Now, you can argue what the truth of 9/11 was. Some people do not believe that those hijackers were actually hijackers, that this was done another way. I don't know where I fall on all of it. But I don't think that we were told the truth about it, and I think that there's more truth out there. And I think it's really easy to dismiss people as conspiracy theorists when, in fact, these are people that are engineers. They're people that deal in this kind of stuff, and to them it didn't seem right. The government's description of what happened after they did the investigation, something didn't seem right. So you can take that wherever you want it to go, but at the end of the day, when you reflect back, how are you going to feel? Are you going to feel like you know for sure what happened? Or are you going to be like I am, like my husband is, where we're like, well, okay, that's what they say. But we don't know that. So if it was really our own people that did this, if it was really people within our government that did this, or people in concert with others that did this, then that's gonna come out eventually. But it's been almost 20 years, hasn't it? This is 2019. It was 18 years ago that this happened. So I hope people don't let it go. I doubt they will. But with the Queen, you're talking a woman in authority. You're talking about someone who's compassionate and empathic, yes. She's benevolent, she's kind, but she's quiet. And although she has a certain level of power, being that she's the Queen, she's a woman in authority, she doesn't do it in a way that's abusive or assertive, or rather maybe even assertive, but certainly not aggressive in her expression. Now, if she were, ill-dignified, then sure, she might be somebody whose emotions might be all over the place. She might not have healthy boundaries and all of that. But to me right now, today, it seems like she's just sitting in quiet reflection over what's gone on, not just on that day and the days surrounding it or following it, but also what's happened over the course of the last almost 20 years since it happened. So maybe that's what she's suggesting, is to take that time. Also, given we have the 8 of Swords, again, suggesting a time out and a time away. I wonder what this third card will bring. I bet it'll be the same. Well, we have the Page of Swords, so we have a message here. Pages are about undeveloped potential. They can be the princesses or the daughters in other decks. But here we have a page. It's the Page of Swords, so we're talking, again, the air element, our intellect, reason, justice, communication. Today's a Mercury day. It's a Wednesday, so it's a day of communication. In a way, you could say the page represents a new message or a new direction forward, new idea, new concept. Maybe some new awareness will come from today's reflection. Let's do one more card. Because right now we're still at an 8 energy because we don't assign numbers to the court. So we're talking, again, a greater level of harmony, a greater level of the of awareness of the collective consciousness. We're starting to understand that, coming together with intention, with the 4 of Wands. You see a balance and harmony there. 2 balanced polarities coming in balance with one another. You can look at marriage that way. But whenever I see the 4 of Wands in the Rider-Waite deck, it just totally reminds me that you're going to see, it looks like, 2 poles on either side connected together by garlands, and they're in celebration. 2 people are in celebration, holding their bouquets high in the air. So clearly you have 2 people coming together with intention. The divine will and all of that at work. Let's do one more card. And then we'll look at the runes. Well, the Knight of Swords. Yeah, intellect. We're here. We're really on a grail quest. He's moving swiftly. Knights are dynamic. They're the next level of the court after the page. So you're looking at a guy who's a little bit older. who's not so much the student that the page is, but here he's rushing off, you know, to on his Grail quest, basically. It's almost like he's taking on the past because he's headed in that direction. He's taking on the past and challenging its message, maybe. So that's kind of interesting. Let's do a rune. I'm not going to I keep wanting to shuffle cards and take another card, but you know I'm going to get another court card, so no, I'm not going to do that. Let's put those back there so I have some room here. Where are my runes? There they are. Okay. So I don't think I turned the air conditioning on. So let me cool off. I would say to you that it's the candles, but we know it's not. The witch has a hot flash on camera. Yeah, that's great. No, you know, it's funny. I've never been someone who has shied away from talking about perimenopause and menopause. I've never. I know, I know I make men uncomfortable when I do it. Sometimes it was kind of fun, but you know, I've never shied away from it. It's a natural process, just like I don't dye my hair anymore. I stopped when I was 33, and I don't anymore. So it did this right away. I mean, I was getting gray and silver when I was 16. I started to see them then. I got the streak. I have well, actually, yeah, it's right over here. I have a streak right here that started when I was 16, and but it was underneath, so you couldn't see it. I used to have brown hair, and anyway, I've never been shy. I never shy away from this stuff. It's like, this is what I am. You know, there's no illusion. What you see is what you get. So anyhow, Rado, the fifth rune of the Elder Futhark, is indicating change. It's also talking about rhythmic motion and harmony, moving forward together, in other words. Now, one of the things, if you've been here before, you know that sometimes I'll draw these runes out because they're comprised of, some of them are comprised of more than one rune, basically. You can find more than one in them. So in a sense, you know, they're bind runes in and of themselves. But here's Rado. Now, at the top, I'm going to draw this out. You see Laguz. That's flow. We also see Kenaz, which is the torch, or light of spirit, turned outward. We also see it turned inward, up above. I'm going to draw it right above it. So there's a sense of as above, so below, spirit informing the process here, because you have both light turned inward and outward. You also see Isa. I'll draw that right next to Laguz. The stillness within. Basically, the Eight of Swords is suggesting that we employ Isa. You know, you can look at Rado as a soul journey, in a way. Well, it is, not in a way. Let's see if I can find anything else here. No, I think that's it. What am I missing? Nope, I think that's it. So you can see how if you think in terms of rider and horse, or you think in terms of the rhythmic flow of life, if you think in terms of the rhythm between spirit and form, I think that's actually more of the energetic alignment than the horizontal plane of masculine and feminine, or receptive and projective influences, or polarity. Because basically we're harmonizing both on the horizontal plane and the vertical plane. And I think that Rado is really about manifesting spirit into form on vertically. That level of as above, so below, versus the horizontal plane of polarity, of form polarity. So you can say then, I think, that we've been on a journey. And over these last 18 years, we have, instead of learning that we need to come together in shared purpose and move forward in that way, instead, what we've done is we've allowed the politics of the day or of the time to influence us. Now, it's easy to see how that could happen, given the financial crash, which basically started after 9/11. You know, we had a smaller one where we knew people that I knew one guy who was retired. He owned a business, very successful one, and he had, I think he had one retirement account that had like 1.4 million in it, and I think he had about 50,000 left, and it all happened in a matter of a few days. And that was during, I think, 2001 when that happened to him. And then again, we fast forward. We never really recouped, did we? We had all the mortgage nonsense that was going on. We had all of that was escalating, and we had Enron. We had all this nonsense that was going on, right? You really started to see corruption come out, and so, I mean, corruption that we knew was there, but all of a sudden now the consequences of them were coming. And so whenever people's finances are affected, that's when the us versus them stuff starts happening, right? Pretty soon, you know, then we started hearing, we don't want to, what is it, when you, affirmative action, you don't want any of that because, oh my gosh, somebody who's just as deserving, you know, but is never going to get the job, right? Because of the color of their skin, maybe, or their gender or what have you, they're not going to get in, right? Because the white man's going to get it, right? Well, then the white men didn't want that. Then they became disaffected. I mean, maybe this sounds simplistic, but you can see how the flow happened, right? And now here we are in this grievance-based existence, apparently, where nobody can see the forest for the trees and entitlement has run amok. And nobody's listening to one another. You know, the harmony that we need to have, that we need to express, that the Eight is talking about here in the Eight of Swords, it's not happening. Instead, there's a lot of this nonsense where nobody's focusing on reality and the truth. Instead, it's, I'm hurt, so that's all I'm going to just see everything through that prism, right? So that's why suddenly now we look at our country and many of us don't recognize it anymore. But if you think about it, where we began on 9/11 and where we are again today on 9/11, 18 years later, think about what has happened along the way. Think about the little catalytic events. The financial stuff is the biggest part. Think about how many people lost their homes. Think about how many people my age and older had to move in with their kids. Think about that. Or how many kids had to move home, something they never thought they'd do. I think that some of this was done by choice. You could see what the stakes were and you went in anyway, maybe. But not everybody did. Some people, a lot of people, were affected by this and are still scratching their heads trying to figure out, well, how the heck did that happen? I didn't do that. You know, you've got people that lost their jobs. Whenever we go to Portland, we drive along I-205, and you see these tent cities on the off ramps. It's the most, in Portland, it's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Little communities that are set up on off ramps. People are parking their rigs, tents, little motorhomes, cars. They have no other place to go. So think about the flow of all of this. Rado is asking us, is this the soul journey we wanted to take? Or in this time of ascension, can we make a different choice? Let's look at the geomancy rune. If you've never seen this, check out the blog over there, my blog over there at imsteppingaside.com. I do put links to everything, by the way, below the video where it says show more. You can click on that and open that up if you're not real familiar with YouTube. Most people are, though, and they know what that is. But anyway, I do a monthly geomancy reading where I can, where I basically illustrate all of this. Forgive the light here, so I have to be able to put these in order. Okay, we're looking at Pur, I believe. No, Puella. No, yeah, Puella. Well, Puella, I have to tell you, that's so odd, was the the significator. I use a geomancy rune for the significator for those monthly read. Did I do it? Did I do it? Was it there? Or was Puella for this week? I can't remember now if Puella was the significator for the, no, I'll bet it was the week. I'll bet it was the weekly Rune and Moon. Maybe it was on one of those. Puella was the significator. And what Puella means is young energy, female energy. So it's positive and happy. It's fortunate, but not too fortunate. So it could be success that like Fortuna Minor, where success is transitory. It's sort of energy that's flighty. The single dot indicates active presence. The dual is passive, and so we're looking at the air element here that's passive. So maybe a little chatty, maybe not a lot of control with it. But you can also look at Puella in terms of the legacy we leave behind for our children. And I think that the country we've got right now is not doing a very good job of that. I think that we're seeing, it occurred to me, I wrote this other deal on the blog about what draining the swamp really means. Draining the swamp does not mean to the guy in the Oval Office that you're going to get rid of corruption. No, what draining the swamp means is that you're going to get rid of regulations and rules that prevent corporate America from doing whatever they want to do. So that's why you're seeing the environmental protections being removed. You're seeing all kinds of food stamps being affected, Meals on Wheels, school lunch programs, the immigration situation on the border. You're looking at all of these things where, it's funny, they don't want the migrants here, but yet we're going to take them into custody and put them into camps that we're paying. These camps, the taxpayers are paying, what is it, $775 a day per person to house them? Why don't you just turn them back? Why don't you just say you can't come in? Why do you have to take them and put them in camps and we then have to pay for it? See, no. We're not draining the swamp. We're creating an unfettered swamp. That's what he came here to do. He came here to remove all the protections that prevent him from making money and all the other corporate people from making money. And then you add in, the rest of the nonsense with the Russian government and all of that. We have a crisis the level or worse than 9/11. So instead of coming full circle and we've learned something, instead we've given it all away. We've let our grievances and our emotional woundings guide us instead of spirit informing the whole process and learning something from 9/11. If we didn't believe what the government said, then we should have kept looking. We should have demanded it. We shouldn't have shut up about it. But we did. Other than a few who are then labeled as bad people, right? For thinking, how dare you think that? See, there's something wrong with them for questioning what happened. Well, you better question it. Better question what's going on now, because I'm telling you, draining the swamp had nothing to do with getting rid of Democrats or corruption. It had to do with clearing the path for the regulations to go away. That's the swamp. Think about it from the perspective of corporate America. They don't want this stuff here. They want to be able to pollute. They want to be able to run their companies any way they choose, making as much money as they choose. He said when he diverted the FEMA money to build the wall, well, it's really not about that. It's about wealth. It's about building wealth. That's what he said. Did you catch it? It's one of the few times I listened to him. Did you catch it? I did. Doesn't care about that. He cares about building wealth for all the people he's beholden to. We need to take the time and employ the Eight of Swords today. We need to go within and we need to think about what happened. We need to be the queen in our lives. Throw the toxic masculinity aside and be the queen. Be reflective and think back. Have we expressed ourselves in compassion? Or have we just simply tried to struggle to survive? Because I guarantee you, that's really what this is. Now, it may be manifesting in terms of conflict and us versus them and the magnification of the isms in life, but I guarantee you it simply began as trying to struggle and survive this government of ours and what they've done to all of us and what they continue to do to all of us. They let the assault weapons ban elapse. How many more people have to die till we get it through our heads that the Second Amendment does not say anything guaranteeing any weapons you want to have? It doesn't say that. Go back and read it. Go back and read it. Read the words. Don't perceive what you want them to mean. Don't do it that way. Just read the words. Doesn't guarantee any of that. Even Scalia said so in an opinion. So I don't know what's happening. But I think the answer today is found in the Eight of Swords. We need to go within. We need to cut out the noise and just simply think. Reflect. Go from the state of compassion and love and harmony with others. See other people as the other side of self versus the other, because that's what's brought us here. All we've done all this time is try to survive the impact of our government. That's all we've been doing. It needs to stop. They shouldn't be presenting us with anything to survive. Healthcare should be strengthened, not destroyed. Why put us back there? Now they want to go after Social Security and Medicare again, so that the corporate America will survive and the rest of us be damned. No. This is a day of reflection. This is a day of making decisions of how are we going to move forward. If you want to check out On the Cusp and look at what I said there, it's just my perspective. But you can see how the energy is going in that direction of harmony and shared purpose. We might as well get on board now. It means we're going to get to where we're going a whole lot quicker. So, blessings to all of you who lost someone on that day. I'm so sorry for your loss. And I'm sorry for what's happened to this country and to all of us in the process. So, take some time, go within, meditate, and know what you know. We'll see you tomorrow. Be good to yourself. Thank you so much for coming by. Be good to one another, and blessed be.